Hey guys, welcome to Girls Night with Sam and Kate. I'm Kate,
I'm Sam.
and tonight we are talking about things we've learned from mental illness. I know it sounds a little heavy, but it's going to be a good one
It's gonna be
because
good.
there's a lot to learn and a lot of positives to take.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Do you
don't
want to go first?
sure.
Okay.
So, this is kind of an interesting one because I want to talk about mental illness affecting you when it's not your own illness first. I do have some mental issues of my own, but I think a big thing that is not talked about a lot is when you have specifically parents who are mentally ill or have things that cause mental illnesses and how it affects you as the child. Because to be super real with you guys, my mom from a very young age was addicted to drugs and lots of things. Like she went to the military basically to get away from an abusive husband, and they were both like crystal meth users. Like it
Hmm.
was worst of the worst. Um, and she was told she could never have kids, and so she just didn't care about what she did with her life. And then at 22, found out she was pregnant with me, um, and so her and my dad got married after I was born, and I think she had a lot of mental health issues that she kind of just hid, because she could. I don't know. Like I think it's really hard to accept that you have a problem,
Yeah.
and she hid behind her addictions. Um, and when I was 10, my parents got divorced, and it got really bad because my mom then at that point didn't really have anyone to keep her accountable. um, there's not, dad coming home every day and asking how things are going. And then she got remarried to another guy who was not that great. He, I think, was also a drug user. Um, and they had like a really tumultuous screaming at each other, like stealing, lying, cheating, all the things. And I got put in the middle of a lot of that because my mom did not know how to talk to other people. She didn't want other people to know about our problems. Looking back, she had a lot of narcissistic qualities. She cared about our image to other people so much that she put me in positions to like be her comfort because I already knew. So what was it going to do to her image if she told me more? But I was not allowed to tell people. And if I ever brought it up, I got slandered. Like when I was
Yeah.
16, I told a bishop. When I started going back to church, I opened up to a bishop, and I was really worried. My mom was like disappearing for days at a time. Like we didn't have groceries. Our water got shut off. Like, do you know what it's like to be in a house without water? You can't flush the toilet.
Yeah.
There were 5 kids with no toilet. Like it was can't do dishes. Like it was not good. So anyway, the the stuff that was really bad for her was she's bipolar, and I didn't know this until I was like 17 years old. And I was like, I wish you would have, told me that you struggled with that. Like I could have at least like started to notice your episodes starting and maybe
Did she
prepared.
know?
She knew.
Okay.
Yeah, she had been seen a psychiatrist for like many years.
So she'd been like diagnosed with it.
Hmm.
Okay.
So she had like bipolar disorder. She has ADHD. She has um, like severe addiction. And something I learned as well is crystal meth addiction is different than other ones. There's just something chemically different about it, and it's one of like the percentage of people who truly like are sober afterwards is such a low percentage because basically you're just chasing a high you'll never get again.
Yeah. Uh
And
huh.
so learning that gave me a lot more perspective on her, but it caused a lot of hurt in me because she was not willing to talk to me about it. And I was like the other parent to my other 4 siblings. My
Yeah.
dad just kind of like disappeared for a lot of years because he didn't know how to handle my mom. She just like went a little crazy, and she kind of kept us from him and told a lot of lies to keep us away from him. Um, and so, I mean, long story short, her mental health like stole my childhood from me. Um, and a lot of what I did as like a young teenager was trying to help my siblings. And as an older teenager, 16, 17, I started, finding my spirituality and trying to figure out who I was. And I realized how awful of a person my mom was being. And I don't think she's a bad person. I just think she made a lot of bad choices.
Yeah.
And so she put me in a really bad position because my options were to leave and better myself or to stay and try and protect my siblings, which is what I did for a long time. I actually moved out when I was 16 and then moved back in because my sisters just begged me to. They're like,
Really?
come back, please. Like, it's so bad when you're not here. And so I moved back in when she moved to this like low income housing. And that's when the water got shut off. That's when she started disappearing. She disappeared for an entire week one time, and then she came back and didn't know how long she was gone. She was like, I was
Really?
gone for one day. You guys need to chill. And I'm like, Mom, it's been a week. And she's like, you need to stop. Like, you need to stop making me feel like such a bad person. You're exaggerating. I was like,
Did
okay.
did she even know where she was?
I don't know. She
Interesting.
would never tell me.
Right.
Um, anyway, and so like she's done a lot of crazy things. Like one of the worst points in her addiction was after I took off. I moved like 3 hours away to go to college and never looked back. And she turned all my siblings against me and told me I abandoned all of them, that I hated all of them, and that basically every bad thing in their life was my fault. And there was a lot of bad things going on in their lives. So they really like my next oldest youngest sister from me hated me for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I can't blame her. Like we got pitted against each other like hardcore, and like how that's not fair,
Yeah.
you know. And so mental health has such like a toll on the kids. So like if you're a mom who has mental health and you don't take care of it, it will affect your kids.
Yeah.
Do not, do not just hide. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't feel like you're gonna, let anyone down by opening up and asking for help. All you're going to do is give your kids a better life and
True.
yourself a better life. Like give yourself like the chance to be better because you deserve it and your kids deserve it. And you don't have to go through the crazy things I did.
Mhm.
And I mean, gosh, the first time that the first time that my mom and Kyle met, she stole $200 from him and swears to this day she didn't do it.
She still does.
Yeah, she
That's
doesn't
crazy.
remember. She
Huh.
does not remember. And it's because she was high.
Yeah.
But we went to a water park and she convinced us to put our bags over by this fence. And I was like, oh, she's been known to be a klepto. Like, she's stolen lots of cash from me in the past. But I was like, I don't have any cash. I don't think Kyle has any cash on me. It should be fine. And like 5 minutes after, she comes running at us. These kids were going through our stuff and they took off. And we go over there and Kyle pulls out his wallet and he's like, oh, like some of my cash is gone. I was like, some? He's like, yeah, it's kind of weird because $200 was gone, but he had $300 in his wallet. If you're gonna steal something, would you
Take
not
it
just
all.
you take
Yeah, and
all the
run.
cash or the entire wallet and
Yeah.
run? You don't sit there and count out $200. Her hotel that she was staying in was $200 a night. If you were wondering.
That's so funny.
So she stayed an extra night, and I replaced his money for him because he was using it to go on a boys' trip, and was mortified and thought he would dump me. But he never talked about it again until after we were married. He brought it up, and he was like, "Yeah, you remember that time?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was so crazy. It was my mom." And he's like, "Oh, I know." I was like, "Wait, you knew?" And he's like, "Yeah, I knew.
Oh.
She does not lie well." And I was like, "Well, I knew that."
Yeah.
And he's like, it was obvious. And he was like, he actually went back to the water park and asked to see video footage. They could see her stealing it.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I don't tell that part a lot.
Huh.
But
well, now everybody knows.
yeah, and then so I'm like, my mom denies it, or now she's kind of trying to recover a little bit more. Like she's getting to a point where I think she's more coherent.
But like
more
you
often,
said, like
so
what, 26 years later, like
yeah.
that is wild. That like that's all you knew her as.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
And a lot of the times, like I feel like I could call her and I can tell like she's just not all there.
Oh,
And
really?
then other times I can call her and I'm like, oh, I can actually talk to you today. Like this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's really hard to talk to her though, because I just like I wish I could call her and talk to her about all my problems in my life, and it's just not there. I don't trust her.
So not only did it affect your childhood, it also affects like just your relationship as adults now.
Yeah. So, yeah. It makes me really grateful for Kyle that he did not judge me off my mom, and it gives me a lot more empathy for people who have addiction problems.
Yeah.
Because it really is something that's like so hard to overcome, and you really need a lot of help and resources and a lot of willpower to humble yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have to admit a lot of wrongdoing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people who are in their inactive addiction make awful decisions, and they don't want to ever have to be responsible for them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, you got to own up to it, and you got to figure out the root cause of why you started using stuff in the first place. Like, what's the root cause?
Yeah.
That's not easy to get to. I know, like, my mental health is all over the place all the time. Like, I deal with depression, ADHD apparently. Like, we'll see. I'm not willing to go to the doctor yet for that one.
Yeah.
I'm managing fine, but like it's just like I've seen so many things like come up and it like petrifies me. I'm like I cannot turn it into my mom.
Yeah.
So like I'm somebody who like does not use Tylenol or ibuprofen except like very sparingly. Like I'll get a migraine and I'll wait an entire day to take medicine for it because I just like have this instilled in me that I like don't need medicine
But I
because
think
I'm
your
terrified of
awareness
it.
of it is
Oh
us
yeah,
like in the right direction.
yeah, and it's not that I'd ever end up like her. It's just like the
The fear.
fear.
Yeah.
It motivates me to stay like living a good life because I've firsthand seen what addiction can do to people and I never want to do it to myself or to my kids.
Yeah.
Like I am so grateful to like live a life where I can see that and
Mhm.
not have fallen into like the same path.
Pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it definitely like affects me a lot and lots of people around us, but I'm actually super grateful for the experience because I feel like there were so many instances where I could have succumbed and just been like, I'm just gonna do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I truly feel like God was just like reaching out to me and just being like, you can do this.
Yeah.
Like you've got to stick through it. Like you know what the right thing to do is. And he blessed me through lots of people throughout my life to just kind of help guide me when I needed it and didn't know it, when I wasn't willing to talk to him.
Right.
And I don't know why. I don't know why I got to have that privilege of being kept away from really harmful things. I don't know why I got to take on that role. Um, but I'm here and
Yeah.
never done drugs, never really drank, like,
Yeah. No,
you
that's
know, and so
amazing.
it's
Good
just
for
kind
you.
of wild to think like for whatever reason I was protected
Yeah.
and so I'm gonna talk about it now.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Oh,
I don't
that's
know.
awesome. Okay.
That was a little heavier than I was expecting. I'm sorry.
It happens. Um, my thing that I've learned is so I didn't really, not that I knew struggled with anything growing up, but now I know that I had like OCD and not in the sense of like I have to wash my hands. I'm really not a germaphobe, and
Yeah.
that's the first thing that like I thought OCD was.
Mm-hmm.
And so but I would OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, and so I leaned heavily on the obsessive part where I would just obsess about things, and like anything, like thoughts. I could like I would just a thought would trigger me, and I would just obsess about it, like in high school. But anyways, the one that I learned about the most, or things that I learned about for mental illness the most, happened after I had Capri.
Mm-hmm.
And um, anyways, it's so after I had Capri, I thought I had a brain tumor because I had headaches all the time, and that's
Yeah.
what Google says is you have a brain tumor if you have headaches. And so I thought I had a brain tumor, and so I heavily obsessed about that of what was going to happen to my kids if I died and what Brenton would do if I died, and so I obsessed about that for a long time, and then it came to a point where like that obsession led to for whatever reason, but what if I was the one to hurt my kids, right? So it just kind of transferred into intrusive thoughts obsessions. And so I would, like we talked about last episode, I was so distracted that I wasn't there for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not that I wasn't there in the sense of like feeding and cleaning them, but I wasn't there like interacting and being with them.
Mentally.
Mentally, I wasn't there with them. And so, these intrusive thoughts would be as far as like I would be cooking dinner and I would see a knife and I would like my mind would spin with everything that would happen with this knife if I like let myself, right? And so then I would like obsess about this knife and I couldn't look at like that certain knife for a long time, and so it's just like this obsessiveness about this one thing or like bathing them. Like I know that you're so like it's so interesting how different because you talked about before, I don't think it was in an episode, but like how you serve like water soothes you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how like you could like bathe your kids or wash their feet and that was like
Yeah, it was
healing for you.
Yeah, calm
But
down.
like on the complete opposite side, like I for a while couldn't bathe my kids without Brenton home because it was spark of like what if I did something to my children, and then like, it would just like my mind would just spin out in all these details, and there's so many intrusive thoughts that I can look at a picture, or I can look at something certain, and it will just bring back those thoughts, not where it triggers me anymore, but I just remember being so un unpresent, not present
Yeah.
with
Like
my kids.
disassociated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it just felt kind of like out of body, and I just remember like wanting to get hooked up to a machine to see how fast my thoughts were spinning, to like know, cuz I knew I had a problem, but I didn't know what
Yeah.
it was. And so I remember Brenton dragged me to a postpartum meeting one night, and this lady, she was literally an angel, was for whatever reason that night talked about intrusive thoughts, and I was
Mm.
like, "Oh my gosh, like word for word, like I can check off everything that she is describing
Yeah.
as what I am going through." And I just remember that night feeling like automatically like healed in a sense of like, okay,
You
like
weren't alone.
I'm not alone, like I can do this. And so, and
Yeah.
like looking, I would then go home and like look it up, and everything was like, okay, like I can make it through this. And so it was just such a weird time to go through, of like, this is supposed to be so magical, and I'm supposed to be enjoying every moment with my kids, and that's what everyone says. And so it was just like a very like, it was just a very hard time in the sense of like, sorry, of like nobody, I hate crying. um I have four sisters and my mom, and everybody was like, we love you, but we don't know what you're going through, like
Yeah.
this has
You felt alone.
never happened. Yeah. And so, things that I've learned from it. That was my mental illness, was intrusive thoughts with the obsessive part. And so, things that I've learned from it is that your thoughts don't define you. Like
Yeah.
your thoughts are not who you are, and I am so appreciative that I learned that, because we all have crazy thoughts, and just that the thoughts, and not only that they don't define you, but like just because you have a crazy thought doesn't mean you're gonna act on it. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't mean anything. I've also learned that like, um, this wasn't supposed to be heavy, Caitlin.
I know, I'm sorry.
um,
Set the tone.
I've also learned that there are literal angels around us. Oh, I reflect on that moment, that
That
period
meeting.
of my life, and Brenton will, like, when we talk about it now, be like, I didn't even know who you were, and that's like, it always hits me super hard, and but I look back on it and I just think of like how many angels were there, like, I don't know, necessarily stop me from doing anything, because with intrusive thoughts, it's never that you have the intent, but it's that you obsess on the thought of it. And so I
Yeah.
never had the intent to act on any of them. But I think that there were angels there to like, I don't know, comfort me. And I
Yeah.
think that's enough. And so I don't
Yeah.
know. There's so much that I've learned from that time in my life, that I've learned to like be able to sit with my thoughts, and to be able to like just know, um, I don't know. One huge thing, and I think I'll end with this, is like it took a lot of self reflection of knowing who I was, and knowing God's plan for me. And I know God's plan for me 100% was never to act on any of those thoughts. And so it was just to make it past those thoughts and those distractions, and my human weakness of obsessing about things, and being able to rely on who God wants me to become. And I think God, I mean, we're mortal, we're human, and
That
we
was
are
like beautifully said. Like that was so
we
good.
are all going to have
Oh.
these weaknesses, and we can make it through them. So
Yeah.
I just want this episode to be like a message of hope, because
Yeah.
if I hadn't found that lady that night of like saying that she had gone through the same thing, like I don't know, like I'm sure I would have found answers sooner or later, but that answer needed to come, and I'm grateful that she was there to be that answer. And so,
Yeah. I agree.
yeah.
Let this be your sign to ask for help if you need
Yeah.
it, and that mental illness doesn't define you, and
Yeah.
it doesn't define your family,
Mhm.
and that it really is a trial of this mortal life,
Yeah.
and it is a weakness because we all have them,
Yeah.
and it doesn't define who you are. I love
Yeah.
that so
All right.
much.
All right. That's our.
If you want
Sorry,
to
guys.
cry with us more, come back next
Yes.
week.
Or any.
Subscribe, like,
Yeah.
whatever,
And
all the
any tips
stuff.
that you've learned, because like we all learn stuff from trials, and so if you have something that you can share that could hopefully help somebody else
Or
Would
if
love
there's
to
something
hear
you
it.
want us to even learn from you.
Yes, learn from you. We still need that too. So,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks, guys. Next one will be lighter.
Yeah.
Bye.